Production funding for this program is made possible in part by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
She's the author of 3 best-selling books and hosts a podcast, Terrible Thanks for Asking, that reaches over 15 million listeners. She helps us navigate grief with a sense of humor and insight. And now it's time to join me for a conversation with Nora McInerney. So Nora, let's start out. Give viewers a little bit of your story, because you had 3 very tragic incidents back to back to back that set you on this course that you're on now. So let's start there with the 3 very traumatic incidents.
Yeah, I think like most people, my life was good until it was hard, and bad things were always something that happened to other people, and then all of a sudden I was other people. And so for me, that started in 2014. My husband, Aaron, had brain cancer for 3 years, but in the fall of 2014, I lost our second pregnancy, and 5 days later, my dad died of cancer, and 6 weeks after that, Aaron died also. So prior to that, I was just living my life, going to work, and everything completely changed.
And so let's start with Aaron, because I think it's a neat story in terms of obviously falling in love, but also too doing something special with a very tough situation and making the best of it and living within the moment of it. So describe kind of falling in love and then ultimately what happens a year later.
You know, falling in love is only interesting to the 2 people who are doing it. So it was exactly like you fell in love, or everybody fell in love, where finally you just meet this person and it clicks and you're thinking, how did we both exist on this planet without knowing each other? It's like you've discovered a secret that nobody else has ever learned except for all of the other people who have fallen in love, but it's still so special. And I met Aaron and we were together for a year, and almost a year to the day, he was diagnosed with brain cancer. It came out of nowhere, at least to us. It had been growing in his brain for a while, and Aaron was, the day I met him and the day he died, the funniest person I'd ever met. I was completely unequipped to deal with something difficult. I had not been through anything hard or seen anyone really go through something hard in my life, and neither had Aaron, but watching him deal with things was laying out the blueprint for the rest of my life, truly. Aaron lived every moment in the present. So he and I agreed right at the onset of his diagnosis to tell the doctors to never tell us how much time he had left. Like, what are you gonna do with that information except watch a clock tick down? We wanted to just make the most of the time we had. And I think when you think about that, like this sort of YOLO, like you only live once, like live every moment mentality, it's kind of easy to think, well, I mean, what, did you climb a mountain? Did you jump out of an airplane? We went to work, we got married, we had a baby, we walked our dogs, and I yelled at him for not taking out the trash. It was
Very
like
normal.
Very normal. It was like everybody else's marriage. And that is what has really made me appreciate what I have in every moment, even when that moment is really, really hard. Aaron was a funny person, and I think the best exhibit of that I have is his obituary, which I think I've shared with you before, but we wrote it.
It's a very famous obituary.
It's a very famous
at this point.
obituary. It's literally, I've written 3 books, and this is my most famous piece of writing, is that Aaron and I co-wrote his obituary before he died. And it says, per mort, Aaron Joseph, age 35, died due to complications of a radioactive spider bite and years of crime fighting against a nefarious criminal named Cancer who has plagued our society for far too long. It talks about our son Ralph avenging his father's untimely death. Aaron was a huge Spider-Man fan. He was the kind of guy who always made you feel like you belonged. When you were around him, oh, I'm in on this joke, I'm a part of this. We wrote that and it went viral, and suddenly the entire world was in on this, which was so Aaron. So I think when we lose the people we love, we never have a choice, right? We don't have a choice about when these things happen, but we do have a choice as to whether we close ourselves around that loss or whether we use their light to help us burn brighter. And I hope that I do that.
And that's something that you encourage people to do is, it's tough, but write your obituary while you're alive. So that way you're telling the story that you want to tell. You're not leaving it to someone else and family that might think that I need to be listed first, but really allowing them to tell their own story.
Yeah, and there's so much power in that too. I will also tell you that, you can say that you're a Spider-Man. They're going to publish it.
They'll print it.
You pay for it. You pay for it. You do pay per line, but if there's any time you should be splashing out, it's when you die. Okay.
Write a whole narrative.
Yeah, take a page if you need to.
But one of the things that was interesting is you said that a lot of his friends, as soon as they found out, they started treating you both differently. Elaborate on that.
I think that look, sad things happen every day. The world is full of sad stories. But when you turn somebody into just a sad story, they're no longer a person. They're no longer the person who threw the best Halloween party you've ever been to. They're no longer a person who definitely does want to go see that Marvel movie at midnight. And we don't distance ourselves from people because we're bad people. We do it because we're so afraid of doing or saying the wrong thing that instead we do or say nothing. Because that way, we can't do or say anything wrong. And to me, that is something that happens when you pity someone. When you feel bad for somebody, it allows you to separate from them. And when you feel bad with somebody, when you can use your imagination. Our parents just told us, put yourself in someone else's shoes. And we were probably like, gross, no. Why would I wear somebody else's shoes? But what they were asking us to do is to just use our imaginations and to really, really feel with somebody, which is really uncomfortable. And I felt that sense of pity, from a lot of people in our lives who I know cared about us, but could not take that next step. And I know that in the past, I've done that too. I've absolutely done that. I've removed myself from a situation because I thought, what would I add? What would I do? I don't know what to say. And so I'll just hang back here.
Yeah. Share what you and Aaron both were doing, because you were doing, both of you kind of in the ad industry, so to speak. So you both were creatives. So give us a little bit of the flair for what you two were doing professionally and some of that side of it.
Yeah, Aaron was a designer, a graphic designer, and he focused on, websites and app development, but he was also just wildly creative on his own, which I think is the best kind of creative person, a person who can do it for money, but also do it just out of his own passion. I'm not a designer. He would be horrified if he saw the things that I put in a PowerPoint. He used to look over my shoulder at presentations I was making. We worked at different agencies. We were basically rivals. And he would say, are you gonna center that? And I'd say, yeah, it's in the middle. Like, is that the font you're gonna use? Yes. Are those the colors? Yes, these are what I'm going to use. But if I had an idea, and I'm a words person and always have been, I could bring it to Aaron and he took it seriously and he wanted to make something. And it didn't have to be for money and it didn't have to be for attention. He was so humble, but he was so good at bringing other people's ideas to life and just for fun. If you had a great idea for a name for your softball team, okay, and you wanted a t-shirt, and you didn't even have a good softball team, he would design that t-shirt for you. He would act as if it were a serious art commission. And for that, I am forever grateful.
Well, and that's a nonprofit arm that you have as well.
Yeah.
Share about that, because
wow,
that comes out of
good. That is what you were asking.
Yes,
Good. I'm great. So when Aaron was like also he was just a funny guy. And he had this huge collection of vintage t-shirts that he had bought at thrift stores. And some of them were, like Little League tees. And he had this t-shirt, Kelly Green, threadbare, clearly homemade. And on it, in cracked, worn out letters, it said, "Still kickin'." The kind of t-shirt that somebody probably made 30 of for their grandpa's 100th birthday. Somehow it fell into Aaron's hands and he was young and healthy, and so he wore it ironically. He wouldn't let me borrow it because I'm sweaty. Thanks. Don't say that to your wife. You can make up any other reason to not lend her your favorite t-shirt. Like, oh, I was going to wear it today. Don't say you're too sweaty for this t-shirt. I mean, it's true, but come on. So Aaron was wearing that shirt the day that he had a seizure. He was wearing that shirt the day we found out he had a brain tumor. And we both looked at it and thought, yeah. So Still Kickin' is a nonprofit that I have, and we give unrestricted financial grants to other people who are going through something hard. It's pretty common knowledge most Americans don't have $500 saved for an emergency. I can tell you from experience, emergencies are more than $500. That's like the entry level emergency is $500. And then it just goes up. You just add some more zeros to it. And Aaron and I were really lucky because we had great insurance and we had great families and we had this entire network, not just of, family and friends and strangers, people who showed up and did support us when Aaron was sick and when he was dying. He was 31, he didn't have life insurance, and the entire internet created a life insurance policy for him that let me pay my mortgage after he died, that let me pay off his funeral, pay off his medical bills, and live and really take care of my son and to grieve. And Aaron and I knew that, we shouldn't be lucky for that. Everybody should have that. And the importance of having power over your own story and not being pitied is so powerful. So the idea came from Aaron. He said, I want to recreate this t-shirt and I want to sell it and I want to give the money to a person. And it was 2014 and I thought, yes, we should do that. Well, it was harder in 2014. Where were we going to put all these t-shirts? How were we going to set up this website when he was too sick to make one and he was the person who knew how to do that? And by 2015, I had an answer and he was gone, but I could still bring this idea across the finish line. So we sell merchandise at stillkickin.co, and every month we pick a person to be our beneficiary and we tell their story without pity and we give them an unrestricted financial grant to get through this hard thing and use for whatever they need or whatever they want. And to date, over the past 4 years, we've given out over $200,000. Awesome. And we've sold t-shirts and hosted events all around the country, and we've sold shirts all around the world. And those two words, Still Kickin', those mean something different to everybody. That meant something different to Aaron when he was sick than it means to me now. And it is not a phrase that sugarcoats things. It is a phrase that acknowledges, yeah, life is hard. Yes, we are all going through something, and we're still here. So lucky us.
Talk about where you are now, because you are remarried, and I want you to kind of paint that picture, because I think the way you approach it is very real, but it's also too something you don't see a lot of, because you talk about disruption on both sides and a blended family and how you have to make that whole, but not push aside the past. So where are you today?
Yeah, today I am in Memphis.
Surprised you
didn't know that.
Yes.
Come on, buddy. But I am remarried. I'm married to a man named Matthew, and he came with 2 children, and I had 1, and then we had another. So there was some organic growth. There was an acquisition. It is a blended family, and you don't get a blended family without 2 families breaking apart first. And I get asked a lot, like, how does Matthew deal with your grief? How does Matthew deal with Aaron? And I say, well, how do you think I deal with his grief? How do you think I deal with his other wife? How do you think I do? It's because we've both been through something. So I don't ask him to pretend as if this is his first marriage. I don't ask his children, who are now our children, to pretend as if they did not have a different life before we met. And he doesn't ask that of me either. So the two of us both have moved forward, but our pasts are a part of our life. They're a part of our experience. His former marriage, the children that he raised with her, that made him the man that I love, in the same way that my relationship with Aaron and losing Aaron made me who I am today. So it's important for me to tell people that when they see our family on the outside, we have 4 kids, a rescue dog, and a minivan. We look great, and we are great. And we have a history of pain, and that is okay. It is okay. Having a painful past does not mean that you are not allowed a happy present, and having a happy present does not mean that you are exempt from pain in the future. And it all exists as a part of life. And when we try to ignore that and only focus on the highlight reel, the Instagram worthy stuff, then we feel so isolated when the terrible things happen. And I want to have children and friends and a whole world who understands, well, we get through it all together.
Right.
Yeah.
Talk about timeline, because when people think grief, there's no finish line. And you talk about it a lot, where even it's not or, it's yes and that all of this makes you whole in who you are and you grow from it. So share, when you talk about timelines and expectations, what is reality when you talk about grief?
The reality to me is that it is a chronic condition. And that doesn't mean that it feels the same for me almost 5 years after Aaron's death as it did a year ago or that first day of widowhood. But it also doesn't mean that it's going to feel the same today as it will in 5 years or in 50 years. And I think that living in the West, we don't have a great culture around grief. So most people don't get a lot of time to grieve. The average bereavement leave is like 3 to 5 business days. If you lose a spouse or a child, what if you lose your best friend? What if you lose the uncle who raised you like a dad? What it's going to come down to is what your, employer will allow you to take. And as a result, when we see people out in the world acting like normal people and going back into their normal routine, we think, well, I guess it's over. I guess they're okay. And then we start to feel like, well, I guess I should be okay by now. Most people have this idea in their head that the year mark will be sort of a finish line. And I definitely thought that too. I thought, well, if I can just get there, if I can stay busy enough, then a year will pass. I'll have avoided feeling truly horrible, and I'm a genius. But that was just a way of sort of kicking the can down the road. And it did come out. It did come out, and I had to deal with my grief because otherwise it was dealing with me, and I was not in control of it. So I try to, whenever I meet somebody who is really in the thick of it, say, this is hard. This is really hard, and that's okay. It's okay if you are struggling right now. It is okay if this is extremely painful. It's supposed to be. And when you push against that and try to cover it up, that creates even more pain within yourself. So try to sit with it, try to work through it, try to lean on the people around you. You can get professional help. You can get help within your community and your faith community. It is so hard to open yourself up and say, this actually really hurts. But the people who matter, who want to be there, need to know that so that they can show up.
And you talk a lot, and I definitely want you to cover this, because we all struggle with, we say, how are you doing? And you feel like you have to say, oh, I'm fine. What do loved ones say when they know they're obviously not fine and they're struggling? How do you help? What do you do? For all of us who know someone who's going through grief and pain, how do we help?
So the first thing that you can do is show up. And show up consistently and show up for the long term. Now, not everybody that you love who is suffering lives within driving distance of you or walking distance of you, but you can still check in, right? So the first thing that I do when somebody has experienced a loss is I do reach out and I say, you don't have to reply, but I just want you to know that I've heard the news and I'm thinking about you. No need to reply. I want them to feel no obligation to me. Then I put that date in my calendar as a recurring event every year so that I can be a person who remembers with them. In the long term, we all want to know that the person we loved mattered in the wider sense, that we are not the only person who thinks of them and is missing them. It is wonderful. One of my favorite things is when people who knew Aaron will email me and say, hey, I was walking today and I saw this thing that made me laugh and I knew Aaron would have laughed at it and I did too. That's great. That's great. And they didn't make me sad, or maybe they did. Maybe I cried a little bit, but I'm so glad to know that he matters to more than just me. So letting a dead person be more than just a sad story, reminding people of, and letting a person talk about their dead person as more than just their death too. So not how did your husband die, but tell me about your husband. What was he like?
Yeah.
Like, what did he love? What did he look like? There are so many things that you can do, but if you really, really care about a person, and this is a very close person to you, being there and listening is so hard. It's so hard for us to not fill that silence, to not make a joke, to not create some sort of diversion, to not change the subject. You don't even have to bring it up, but just sitting with a person and letting them know that you are present with them is really, really powerful.
And that's something that you've had to teach yourself to do on your podcast. And even in the Jewish faith, share what the Jewish faith is.
I also found so much comfort in knowing the grieving rituals of other cultures. And in the Jewish tradition, they sit Shiva. They spend 7 days in intense mourning, and that's like really, the core group of mourners, like immediate family. And you go to them, and they are the people who can break the silence. They are the people who can tell you like what the subject of conversation is. Now, in my tradition, which is like Minnesota Catholics, like we walk in and we're like, here's some food, and also what's something we can talk about? You got a new rug. Oh wow, your dog's so cute. Did you see? Like we just have to talk and fill that quiet, and we want to bring up something that is not sad. But there's so much power in just sitting there. And if the mourner wants to talk about their new carpet or their dog or the weather, you can do that. And if they want to talk about their dead person, they can do that. And if they don't want to talk at all, then you can all sit quietly. And I think there's really something beautiful in that.
Share a little teaser for the podcast and give us maybe, I won't say favorite, but give us a recent guest and something you've learned from the guest.
So Terrible Thanks for Asking is a podcast that you can get anywhere you listen to podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, and it's a narrative interview podcast. So you're not just going to hear two people talk back and forth for an hour. There's a story arc to it, and there's music to it, but the whole point is to sit down with a person who's experienced something difficult, something that is usually very hard to talk about, and to let them tell their story and to tell it without pity, and to help us all flex our empathy muscles, which empathy to me does start with just being able to listen to something that is uncomfortable or that you disagree with, or from a person whose voice bothers you, or a voice that you don't hear very often. One of my favorite recent episodes is actually primarily in Spanish. And it is an interview with two women who were hoping to adopt their foster daughter, and who did not end up being able to adopt her, and who were wrestling with that ambiguous grief that they would never raise this child, and this child was not dead. They would never see her again. They love her. They won't raise her because her birth mother got better, which is the point of foster care. And holding those two things to be true, that you love a person who is also loved by another person, and you won't be able to be in their life. And one of the women was only spoke Spanish, and instead of muting her and translating, we let her talk, because you don't even need to know word for word what she is saying, because you can tell. You can tell that what you're hearing is a mom's heartbreaking, because she was a mother for a while to this little girl, and she will always love her like a child. And that is not a side of foster care that I'd really considered, which is that all of these people are opening up their hearts and their homes to children and giving them as much love as they can, knowing that it might not be forever, and that actually the point is for it not to be forever. Yeah. And that is not an experience that I'd had. That is not an experience that I'd spent much time thinking about. And also, I am only level 4 on Duolingo, so I could understand every 16th word that she was saying. I was like, her, it, library? But I could tell already, like I knew what we were talking about. I knew that what I was hearing was
mother's intuition too,
right.
The love.
Yeah.
What do you hope readers glean from your books?
So my books all deal with serious topics, and they're also funny. And they're not funny in a way that is, flippant or distracting. They're funny in a way that I think most people can relate to naturally, that when something terrible is happening, you also find these moments of levity, and that they are not mutually exclusive, just the way that you can move through life with a lot of pain and a lot of grief, and also experience happiness and bring that happiness along with all of your past. So the first book is called It's Okay to Laugh, Crying is Cool Too. That's a very long title. That book is about meeting Aaron and losing Aaron and that first 6 months of widowhood. I wrote that book in the 6 months after Aaron died, which is, I look back at that and I think, how did I do that? But I really, really wanted to write a book that was in the moment, that did not have the benefit of 5 or 10 years of perspective, because being in something is a perspective too. And the second book is called No Happy Endings, and that is about meeting Matthew and blending our family and holding that love and that pain together. And the third book is called The Hot Young Widows Club, and that is a practical book published by TED. It is a grief guide. It is not just for widows, but that's a catchy title, and also a group that I do have that anybody who has lost their person is welcome to join. And it is split into 2 forms of advice, one for the griever and one for the grief adjacent. Because as you've mentioned, we all want to know how to be better for the people around us who are suffering. And there are no, quick fixes, and there are no top tips and tricks, but there are certain things that everybody can get better at.
So last quick question is, where do we go to follow you and see all of this information that you put out?
You can find me at noramcinerney.com. And that's hard to spell, so I also go by noraborealis.com, which is a play on the Aurora Borealis, which I have to explain to people because sometimes they think that's my last name. So, and I'm on Instagram and all of those places as well. I'm pretty easy to find. There are not a lot of Noras.
Well, we greatly appreciate you coming on the show, for being a light and helping us through the darkness. So thank you for all you do, for the podcast, the books, everything you put out there, all the good energy. So thank you, Nora, for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you, everyone, for joining us for A Conversation with Nora McInerney.